A customer demanded I honor a fake discount, screaming. The sign said 80% off, you're scamming me. When I showed her the correct price, she smirked. I'll just get the manager to override it. My manager walked over, looked at the sign, then turned to her, saying, Nice try, we have cameras, and we just watched you move that sign. Her face went pale. Alright, so I work at a big box retail store in New York City. One of those places that sells everything: clothes, home goods, electronics. You name it. I've been here for a while, and I've seen all kinds of customers. Rude ones, weird ones, the ones who think they're the smartest person in the store. But nothing prepared me for her. It was a Saturday, the kind of day where you know it's going to be a mess from the moment you clock in. People everywhere. Crying kids. Carts bumping into shelves. People leaving random items in places they absolutely do not belong, like a gallon of milk in the shoe aisle. I was on register duty, just trying to make it through my shift. That's when I saw her coming. She walked up like she owned the place. Mid-50s, fur coat, fake, but she probably wanted people to think it was real. Huge sunglasses, indoors, mind you, and a designer handbag. She carried herself like she was above the rest of us. You just know the type. She dumped a pile of clothes onto my register. Not placed. Dumped. That was the first red flag. The second red flag? Every single item had a clearance sticker on it. Now, I've worked here long enough to know when something is off. Some of these items were brand new arrivals. We're talking fresh out of the shipment boxes this week. And yet, somehow, they magically had bright red clearance tags slapped on them. But hey, I don't make the rules. I just scan. So I start ringing her up. $19.99. $29.99. $24.99. Then the total pops up. Around $300. That's when she pouts. Oh, sweetheart, she says in this fake sweet voice. I think you made a mistake. These are supposed to be 80% off. I look at the screen again. Oh, no, ma'am. The clearance items today are marked at 30% off, not 80%. She frowns. No, she says, shaking her head. I saw a sign back there. It clearly said 80% off. Now, here's the thing. I know we don't have an 80% off sale going on. It's not in the system, it's not in the flyers, and I definitely didn't see any signs when I was restocking earlier. But I also know better than to start an argument with a customer. So I say, no problem. I can have my manager check it out. Immediately, she waves a hand. Oh, don't bother. I know what I saw. Just fix the price. Yeah, no. I grab my radio and call my manager, Jake. Jake has been working here forever and does not play games. Hey, Jake, can you check a sign in the clearance aisle? Customer says there's an 80% off discount. Jake's voice comes over the radio. There's no 80% sale today, but I'll check. I turn back to her. My manager's on his way. She huffs and crosses her arms, clearly annoyed. Fine. But I know I saw it. A minute later, Jake walks up. Tall guy, in his late 30s, looks like he's seen every retail scam in the book. He nods at me, then looks at the woman. What seems to be the problem? She immediately switches from annoyed to sweet. Oh, thank goodness. I was just telling your cashier that I found an 80% off sign in the clearance aisle, but he's saying it's not ringing up that way. Jake doesn't even blink. Where exactly did you see the sign? She gestures vaguely toward the back. Right near the dresses. Jake nods. All right, let's take a look. I stay at the register while Jake heads toward the clearance section. Meanwhile, the woman taps her nails on the counter, sighing dramatically every few seconds. She's so sure she's about to get away with this. And honestly, that almost made me second-guess myself. Maybe there was a sign. Maybe someone put up the wrong discount. Maybe she actually saw something I didn't. Then Jake comes back. No sign in his hands. No extra markdowns. Just a look on his face that I know means trouble. He walks up to the woman, looks her dead in the eyes, and says, We just checked the security cameras. She freezes. Jake crosses his arms. We saw you take a sign from the $5 bargain bin and move it to the clearance rack. The color drains from her face. She blinks. Opens her mouth. Closes it. Then, she tries to recover. I must have, maybe someone else. Jake doesn't let her finish. No. It was you. We have it on camera. At this point, people around us have started to listen in. A few customers in line are definitely pretending to be busy with their carts, but I know they're dying to hear what happens next. She knows she's screwed. But instead of admitting it, she smirks. Oh, I'll just get the district manager to override it. Jake doesn't even flinch. Oh, you mean Lisa? He says. Our district manager who personally reviews all fraud cases. Her smirk fades. Go ahead, Jake says, pulling out his phone. Let's call her together. Now she looks genuinely nervous. Jake actually dials Lisa, puts the call on speaker, and we hear Lisa's voice come through. What's up, Jake? Jake grins. Hey, Lisa. Got a lady here who tried moving an 80% off sign and claiming it was valid. Lisa sighs. Is it the one in the fur coat? I swear I saw the woman stop breathing for a second. Jake leans in. Yup. Lisa groans. She did the same thing last month at our Midtown store. She's banned from all locations. The woman looks like she's about to throw up. And just when I think this can't get any worse for her, Lisa says, tell her she can leave quietly, or I'll have NYPD handle it. Now everyone in line is staring. I watch as the woman grabs her purse, yanks her sunglasses over her eyes, and storms out of the store without another word. Jake just shakes his head and turns to me. Nice catch. I exhale. The guy behind her in line just whistles. And I cannot wait to see how this plays out next. I thought that was the end of it. I thought she'd take the loss, slink away, and maybe try her little scam somewhere else. I was wrong. Because less than 10 minutes later she came back. I was still ringing up customers, trying to move past the insanity that had just happened, when I saw her walking right back through the automatic doors. Same fur coat. Same oversized sunglasses. Same attitude. But this time, she wasn't alone. She had a man with her. Now, this guy looked to be in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. Tall, stocky, expensive-looking leather jacket. The kind of guy who thinks raising his voice automatically makes him right. I just knew, this was about to be a problem. The woman stormed up to my register again. Her face was still red, but now she had backup. The man stepped forward, slamming both hands on the counter. We need to speak to a manager. Now. The sheer audacity. I had to stop myself from laughing. Did she really think she could just bring in her reinforcements and pretend like the last 10 minutes didn't happen? I kept my face neutral. Sure. Give me a second. I grabbed my radio. Hey, Jake, can you come back to the front? Before Jake even got there, the guy started up again. My wife just told me what happened, he said, like I was supposed to be impressed. She was humiliated. She says one of your employees accused her of stealing. I cut him off before he could get rolling. Nobody accused her of stealing, sir. His face twitched. He didn't like that. She said your security team treated her like a criminal. He shot back. I didn't say anything. Just let him dig his own hole. Because right on cue, Jake walked up, arms crossed, already done with this nonsense. Jake glanced at me. They causing a problem? The guy turned his attention to Jake, puffing himself up like a discount mafia boss. You must be the manager, he said. I don't know what kind of place you're running, but my wife says you disrespected her. Jake didn't even blink. Oh, you mean when we caught her on camera trying to fake an 80% discount? Silence. The guy opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked at his wife. She was fuming. Jake kept going. I'm gonna be real clear with you. We caught her. Red-handed. We have her on camera moving the sale sign. And our district manager confirmed she's already banned from our stores. The guy's jaw clenched. This is ridiculous. The woman snapped, stepping forward again. You lied. You made me look like a fool in front of all these people. Jake's voice was calm. Too calm. No, ma'am. You did that to yourself. That's when the guy lost it. His face turned red. His fists clenched. This is unacceptable. He hissed. You're going to regret this. You have no idea who you're messing with. Now, normally, this is the part where people bluff and threaten to call corporate, or get us all fired. But something about how he said it? It didn't sound like a bluff. Jake stiffened just slightly. The guy noticed. Smirked. That's when he leaned in, voice low. You think this is funny? He murmured. You think you can treat people like this and get away with it? Jake's expression didn't change. But I saw the way his jaw tightened. I suggest, the guy continued, voice still low but full of something ugly, that you fix this. Because I can make problems go away. Or I can make problems worse. Now, I don't scare easy. But this? This wasn't normal, angry customer behavior. This was something else. The guy was threatening us. And for the first time, I started wondering, who the hell was he? I should have known she wouldn't go down that easy. I should have known she'd come back. But what I didn't expect. That things were about to take a very, very dark turn. Jake didn't flinch. He stood there, arms crossed, looking at this guy like he was nothing more than another overgrown toddler throwing a tantrum. But I could feel it. The shift in the air. This wasn't just some angry customer puffing his chest. This guy meant it. Jake's voice was steady. Sir, I suggest you and your wife leave before this escalates. The guy chuckled. Not a normal chuckle. A slow, deliberate, I know something you don't kind of chuckle. I'll be seeing you around, he said. Then, without another word, he grabbed the woman's arm and marched her out of the store. Jake and I just stood there, watching them go. And for a second I thought maybe, just maybe, that was the end of it. It wasn't. About an hour later, I went on break. I grabbed a soda from the vending machine in the break room, then headed outside for some fresh air. The second I stepped out, I felt it. That weird itchy feeling you'd get when someone's staring at you. I glanced around. At first, nothing seemed weird. People loading up their trunks, a couple of kids running around, the usual. Then I saw it. A black SUV parked near the far end of the lot. Not in a space. Not near the entrance. Just sitting there. Engine off. Tinted windows. And suddenly, my stomach dropped. Because I knew. I knew who that car belonged to. I turned back toward the store, forcing myself to act normal. The second I walked inside, I grabbed my radio. Jake. You there? Yeah, what's up? I lowered my voice. Black SUV at the edge of the lot. I think it's them. There was a short silence. Then, I see it. Stay inside. I peeked through the front doors. Sure enough, Jake had stepped outside. He walked a little closer to the curb, hands in his pockets, watching the SUV. It didn't move. Didn't start up. Didn't leave. Just sat there. Jake exhaled sharply over the radio. All right. Call mall security. I didn't even hesitate. Security showed up about 5 minutes later, 2 guys in uniform, one older, one younger. They weren't exactly SWAT-level intimidating, but they did their job. They approached the SUV. Knocked on the driver's window. Nothing. Knocked again. And then the car peeled out of the lot, speeding toward the exit. Security barely had time to react. The younger guy jumped back, cursing under his breath as the SUV disappeared into the traffic. Jake turned to the older security guy. Did you get a plate? The guard sighed, shaking his head. No, but... He hesitated. But what? The guard rubbed the back of his neck. I've seen that car before. My blood went cold. Jake's expression darkened. What do you mean? The guard exhaled, looking around like he was checking for eavesdroppers. Then he lowered his voice. That SUV? Belongs to a guy named Frankie Morello. Jake's face went blank. I frowned. Who's Frankie Morello? The guard looked at me. Then at Jake. Then he said something that made my stomach twist into knots. A loan shark. A scam or something worse? For a few seconds, nobody spoke. A loan shark? Why the hell would a loan shark be showing up at our store? Jake shook his head. You sure? The guard nodded. Yeah. He hangs around certain places, if you know what I mean. And that's when it clicked. The fur coat lady. The way she acted. The way she didn't argue when Jake caught her. The fact that she brought backup. This wasn't just some random scammer. This was bigger. And suddenly? I wasn't so sure this was just about an 80% discount anymore. The second the guard said the words, loan shark, my stomach turned. This wasn't some dumb scammer trying to save a few bucks. This was something bigger. And suddenly? That smirk the guy had when he threatened Jake? The way the woman stormed in like she was desperate? It all clicked. They weren't just trying to scam us for fun. They needed the money. For a while, nothing happened. The SUV was gone. The store went back to normal. I kept ringing people up, Jake went back to his office, and security did a slow lap around the parking lot every once in a while. But the whole time? I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't over. And I was right. Because about 2 hours later, they came back. Not in the SUV. Not together. Separately. The woman showed up first. No sunglasses this time. No fake confidence. Just anger. She walked straight up to my register, shaking with rage. You think you're so smart, don't you? She hissed. I barely had time to react before Jake was already there, stepping between us. I warned you, he said, his voice low. She ignored him, glaring at me instead. You should have just given me the discount. Jake folded his arms. You need to leave. She laughed. But it wasn't a real laugh. It was that hollow, I've lost everything so now I don't care kind of laugh. Then, she leaned in close, her voice shaking. You don't understand, she whispered. You don't get it. This isn't about some stupid sale. Jake stiffened. Then what is it about? Before she could answer, the front doors slammed open. And in walked the man. But this time? He wasn't pretending to be some concerned husband. He wasn't smirking. He wasn't acting like he had the upper hand. Because now? He looked scared. The second he saw the woman, his whole face darkened. What the hell are you doing here? He snapped. She turned eyes wild. Fixing it. You're making it worse, he growled, grabbing her by the arm. Jake stepped forward. Take your hands off her. The man glared at him, but let go. Stay out of this. Jake didn't move. The woman was shaking now. You said you'd handle it, she whispered. I am handling it, the guy muttered. Then, out of nowhere, she screamed. Right there, in the middle of the store. You lied to me! Everything stopped. Every single customer turned to look. The self-checkout registers went silent. The entire store froze. I saw the moment the guy realized he couldn't stop this from unraveling. He turned on his heel, ready to bolt out the door, and that's when Jake grabbed him. Not so fast, he said. The man tried to wrench free, but Jake was stronger. And before the guy could get another word out, the woman turned to the customers, shaking, her voice breaking. You all want to know the truth? She yelled. We don't have any money left. A few people gasped. The man froze. Jake? Jake didn't let go. She laughed bitterly, wiping her face. You think I wanted to be here? Begging for some discount like a criminal? She turned to glare at the man. Because he screwed up? The man snapped. Shut up! He shouted. Jake shoved him back. No. You shut up. The woman kept going. He told me he had it under control, she sobbed. But guess what? We owe more than we have, and now. Her voice cracked. Now we're out of time. For a long time, nobody said anything. The woman wiped at her eyes, her hands shaking. She looked tired. The guy? He looked defeated. Jake finally let him go. He didn't run. He just stood there, staring at the floor. Jake sighed. How much do you owe? The woman laughed again, that same bitter, empty sound. More than I'll ever have. Jake nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time to stop trying to scam your way out of it. The guy flinched. The woman? She just sighed. And then, without another word, she walked out. Jake and I watched as the guy followed her, his shoulders slumped, his whole body defeated. It took a while for the store to go back to normal. People whispered. Customers stared. But eventually, the next person in line stepped up. Life moved on. Jake exhaled. Well, that was a thing. I nodded. For the rest of my shift, I kept thinking about them. The desperation. The lies. The way they turned on each other the second the truth came out. And for the first time, I realized, it was never about the discount. It was about control. The guy wanted to pretend he still had it. The woman was clinging to the last scraps of it. But in the end, they lost everything anyway. As I clocked out, I turned to Jake. You think they'll be okay? I asked. Jake sighed. Not for a long time. Then, after a pause, he shook his head. But they will be. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But deep down, I wasn't so sure.